Welcome back, everyone. Today I will be talking about numbers. The Israelites are still in the wilderness of Sinai. They're still on their journey for 40 years. What numbers is basically is the census, and they taking this number because what's happening is they're building an army to fight off the other nations so they could take over the nations, and those nations that they take over is going to become the land that was promised to them. And I'm reading from the book of Numbers. These are the people of Israel counted according to their families. The total number in the camps, 603,550. God told Moses to get a leader from every tribe, so that's like 12. Take account of every man in your troop from the ages 20 and up who's able to fight. In the book of Numbers, 20 years old is the age that you can enter the army. Today is 18. You could enter the army at age 18. So after he takes account of the numbers come out to 603,550 people. That's every tribe except for the Levites. The reason why the Levites isn't counted in the number for the army is because God has a special job for them. Their job is to take care of the church. So the family of the Levites, Aaron is in that family, Aaron and his sons. That's why Aaron and his sons became the priests of the tent of meeting, because that's the tribe that they're from. This is how I feel about the whole chapter real quick before I go into it in detail. The way I feel about the book of Numbers is it's basically explaining how the army, the military, was made and why the military is made. The military was made for the sole purpose of taking people out, whoever doesn't follow, whoever doesn't agree to have the same God and to worship the same God, take all of them out. At this point, it ain't even whoever agrees to have the same God, because this is their promised land. And before reading, like as you go into, when I first heard that they had a promised land, I assumed that their promised land was a land that was, no one was on it, it was untouched. But they actually have to fight for the land that was promised to them. So the reason why they're killing all these people along the way in these 40 years is because this 40-year journey through the wilderness, the reason why they're killing all these people is because they're trying to get the land that was promised to them, that the God of Israel promised to them. And in order for them to get that, everybody has to die. Everybody that they come across has to die, because the God of Israel said if you was to keep them alive, it would be trouble for you in the future. They might try to convince you to follow their gods. The women might entice the men and try to get the men to do as they say. So you have to kill all of them, so there will be no evil lurking and no wickedness. You have to kill them off, so it could be like purified, so it could be like clean, so the land could be clean. You have to kill all the people off that was there, because the God of Israel said all those people were sinning because they was worshiping other gods. But my thing is, if the God of Israel only spoke to Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Israel, if their God only spoke to them, how can the rest of all the other nations be aware that they're sinning? I'm sure that the other nations are not worshiping other gods because they think it's wrong. They're not trying to do something wrong. They believe in their gods. That's why they're worshiping their gods. Now, if you're the God of Israel and you only tell Israel the right thing, how are you going to blame others? You can't blame everybody else for not following the same God. Why didn't you try to tell them, like, hey, this is our God, da da da? Why not ask them first? Like, do you want to, this is the God of Israel, this is what we believe, these are our decrees, this is the commandments, and give them a choice. And if they accept to go with you, just let them come willingly. And if they don't, then I don't think that the war was necessary at all. But why not ask the people first? And the way I feel about it is, the way I feel about the books and Numbers is like, in school, we learn his story, right? We learn that Christopher Columbus came, he sailed, he found America, or Americus found America, however the story goes, right? But if you want to know how it happened, the reason why these people came and tried to colonize the land, all you have to do is read the Bible. They separated, in the USA, I'm talking about United States of America, they separated church from government. Why did you separate church from government if the Bible has so much to do with how this country was made? Actually, reading the Bible is exactly what this country is built on. This country is built on the Holy Bible. It's religious. And sure, we like to think that, there's free will and we're free and no one is slaves and everything is good. It's not. I'm reading this, and what I'm getting from this is exactly the foundation of America. If I was against war before, I'm definitely against war. It doesn't even make no sense. I just have, my question is, when they made a covenant with God, are they sure that they made it with the God of the heaven and earth? Is that where the term a deal with the devil came from? Serpent. They haven't even spoke about the serpent ever since the Garden of Eden. And the God of the heaven and earth, he didn't kill the serpent. They never say whether the serpent was mortal or immortal. So where's the serpent at doing all this? And remember, this is a time of magic. They're living in a world that is probably similar to the Harry Potter books. That's the type of world they're living in right now. Remember, to even get out of Exodus, for the Egyptian king to even agree to get them out of Exodus, they had to compete with other magicians. Because the magic or the miracles or the tricks, or however you want to say it, that the God of Israel told Moses to show the king of Egypt, there was already magicians that knew how to do those very same things. The only way they really got away is when they tricked them. They didn't overpower them by magic. No. How they tricked them was they had a plan that they didn't know about. They had a good gameplay. That's what got them. The God of Israel parted the sea, let them cross the water. When they walked across the water on flat land, the Egyptians had no idea that the water was going to close on them. They was just in high pursuit. So without thinking, they just ran in there blindly. They ran into the water. When they ran into the water, it was closed. That's how they got away. That's all. But they didn't out magic them. It's just that they rushed after them so quick without thinking. And that's how they all died. But those 8 things, those 8 magic tricks or miracles or whatever you want to call it for them to get out of Egypt, those 10, I'm sorry, it wasn't working at all. So they're taking, this is the Census Bureau. This is the census. They're taking the number, and they need this number because they need to know how many people, how big their army is going to be. That's all it is. It's the army. That's what they're doing. Numbers is about the army. It's about the birth of the army. This is how the army was made. This is how the military was made, from the book of Numbers. So as they fighting off these nations, they're giving the land away. If the first person, whoever the first person was to get the land, say Joshua got the land, right? If Joshua was the first person, like they fight off somebody, then they give that land to somebody, then they give that land to somebody as they go. That's what they're doing. Instead of having one country for all of them, they're giving each tribe its own country, its own nation, basically, like a lot of room. At this time, they're also assigning work to each tribe. The Levites, they run the church, and they're giving other people like positions within the army and within the church, because that goes together. Law, church, and military goes together. It's not separate at all. They're going over rules. They're going over the camp rules. They're going over the offerings. Through God, Moses is teaching the Israelites how to give offering. They talk about holiday, they talk about Passover, and basically the reason for the holiday, Passover, and the reason for like all these special things like the offering in the middle of the year, the first offering of the year, the reason why they do this is because they don't want the people, after generations pass, they don't want the Israelites to forget about this journey through the wilderness. They don't want the Israelites to forget about Exodus. They don't want the Israelites to forget that the God of Israel saved them from being slaves in Egypt. So they won't forget. All of these holidays is coming into play. So every holiday they keep on reliving it, and that's the reason for it. And that's the reason for all the holidays, the Passover and stuff like that. So they could celebrate and they could remember what they've been through, so they can never forget. And that way they could always be loyal to the God of Israel. As they're going through, Canaan is the nation, right? So as they're going through, Moses sends someone to scout it out before they get there, so they can know what they up against, what they need to prepare for when they go to war with this nation. So when they go to Canaan, when they go to this nation, he sends 12 people, one person from each tribe, to go ahead and scout this place out before they get there, and to come back with a report of what it looks like. So they come back with the report, and a few men, like 3 men out of those 12 that he sent to scout out the place, they're scared. They don't want to do it. They see giants there, they see people there, they don't believe that they could do it. So what they do is they tell the other Israelites when they get back to camp that we can't defeat them, they have giants, we're gonna lose. And it made everybody, it strike fear in everybody, because they came back with lies. So Caleb was the only one that Caleb, which was one of the men that out of the 12 that went, he came back with the the truth. So because he came back with the truth and saying, hey, we could do this, these men are just trying to scare the people so the Israelites could get scared or whatever and want to go back to Egypt. So Moses rewarded him, and what Moses is going to do for him is give him his like own land, you know, later on in the story, because he's the only one that told the truth. And what he did, what the God of Israel did to the other guys was like basically killed them. They all died. So there were times throughout this whole process, throughout the 40 years, of course, where the people got antsy. The people was like, listen, are you sure? You know, they losing faith as they go along. For not 1 second was they all for it like the whole 40 years. So at this point, people was getting antsy, like, hey, are you sure? Like, this is true? Do you think we could do this? The rebels, you know, gathered up. The people of Israel, some of them, about 250 of them, rallied up. So it was like 250 rebels that came to Moses and Aaron and said, hey, you know, you overstepped yourself. Who do you think you are giving us orders? They were saying that you need to admit to yourself that this isn't going to happen. This promise, this is never going to happen. They had doubt. So they was trying to tell Moses to step down. My thing with that is the people that was actually there, as they going through it, they don't even believe it themselves. So the whole idea of all of this celebration and all this practice and all this devotion had to be taken so seriously, because the people that's there at this time don't even believe it. They want to give up. The people of Israel is actually saying we should go back to Egypt because it wasn't this bad in Egypt. The people of Israel is saying that the wilderness is worse than they had it in Egypt. They're saying that Egypt was better than the wilderness. They had food all the time when they wanted it. They had fish. They was fed. They was clothed. They was housed or in tents while they was in Egypt. They're telling Moses that they don't think that it's worth it. They think that they should head back to Egypt. So because they did this, went against Moses, the God of Israel killed them. The God of Israel didn't just kill the men that came against Moses. He killed their families, their wives, their children. So in total, the God of Israel killed 14,700 people that day. Also, they had asylums. And what an asylum is a place where God said that the God of Israel said that in each of this city, they need this, in each of these nations that he's given them in their promised land, they have to set aside 3 cities and make these 3 cities an asylum. What the asylum is so people like murderers or people that's accused of murder, it's a place that they can run to in order to escape the avenger. Until the judges, which is the priests, decide whether the person is guilty or innocent, they could hide in an asylum and they can't be touched. And each of the nations, they have to have 3 cities that set aside to become the asylum. So it could have murderers and people that's accused of murder a safe place for them to be. That made me think of the United Nations, how like you see in movies that, you know, movies that's always about a war, they always run to the UN for help, and it's sort of like an asylum, you know what I mean, like a safe place for people to go or to people to be held until the government figures things out. That's basically like what I gathered from Numbers. You know, they building an army, and how what do I think of it? I think about like everything that we learned in school about history is all just a lie. It's a lie. It's a replica of what's in this book. It's a copy. It's nothing new under the sun, basically. They just changed the names. But what Christopher Columbus and all the people that, you know, that conquered nations and colonized people, all they did was following the Bible, following what the Israelites did in the Bible. That's all they did. So it's like, why go to school if you could have a history lesson just based on this one book? That's where I'm going with it. People who haven't, I'm not a religious person, but I would say people who haven't read the Bible, I suggest you read it. Only because I'm talking about people that's in the States, even if you're not religious, even if you're not a Christian or a Catholic or whatever, people follow the Holy Bible or the King James Version or whatever. I still suggest that you read the Bible even though you're not religious, because it will teach you a lot about the U.S. It teach you a lot about the United States of America. It teach you a lot about government. It teach you a lot about law. It teach you a lot about the military. Explains to you why we do stuff today, and you're going to realize how much of school you did not need. But that's what I have for Numbers.